I don't even know where to start. Alright, you know what? I'm just gonna start. So, if I'm being really honest, this week I had nothing. I have all these crazy things that are happening and that are in the pipeline that I just really honestly did not have anything for this week. So I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to just sit down and talk to you guys like this, as if we were just enjoying a cup of coffee at a cafe, two people having conversation. Wow, this is really not planned. We're just gonna roll with it. Okay, let's start. So ever since I started this YouTube channel back in 2020? Wow, that was weird to say. When I started this channel back in January last year, I kind of knew what I wanted to do with it, but I was just figuring it out as I go. And I've kind of spent this whole year on this wild ride, and I've learned so much through doing these weekly videos, not just in terms of creativity and storytelling and editing, but about myself and what it means to actually show up for yourself and to keep the promises that you made to yourself when you were younger, that you made last week, that you made this morning. And through this whole process and this whole journey over the last year, I have made so many amazing connections with people from all across the world. Some of my subscribers have become people that I speak to daily. Honestly, when I started this thing, I wanted to build a community. I wanted to build connection with people. And I'm sitting here a year later having done exactly that. I mean it when I say that I'm grateful for every single person that takes time out of their week to sit there and watch me babble on about something that's happened in my life or something that I've learned. It means the world to me to know that what I do and what I say resonates with a lot of you, which is kind of what I want to talk about today. I have shared my story before about how I kind of went from being in this really dark place to getting myself to where I am now and the life that I'm living now. And if I am being completely and utterly transparent, it wasn't until like last month that I realized there was still a lot of issues that I hadn't dealt with from that period of my life. I don't know if you guys listen to the podcast that I have, Finally Found Podcast. If you don't, the link is in my description below. But I actually shared a more in-depth story about the suffering that I put myself through a few years ago. And the place where I was at was a really miserable and sad place, if I'm being completely honest. It was one that was backed with anxiety, and I suffered a lot of depression. And so when I sit here in front of the camera today with the smile that I have and, you know, the energy that I give and this pure love for my life, it is actually genuinely deep and honest, because once upon a time I didn't want to be here, and I really did come close to ending it all. And I think that's where I want to start with this video. Like I said, if you haven't listened to my whole story, which I'm not going to go into in this video, it is on my podcast. It is called How I Overcame Depression and Anxiety and Suicide. Something like that. I don't know. I'll link it in the description below. Anyway, a few years ago, I was the type of person that thought that I had everything I ever needed. I had a really stable, or what I thought was stable, relationship that I'd been in for 7.5 years at that point. I had a good job. I had my own business. I had my family, I had good friends, I had everything. I honestly had everything. I even had all the materialistic things that generally are supposed to show that you're successful and that you're happy and that your life is going really well. That is a load of horseshit. To be honest, on the outside, my life looked completely perfect, but on the inside, I was dying. Every single day for me was just a struggle to wake up, and every single waking moment and every connection that I had it felt empty. I just felt empty, I felt alone, I felt like nobody understood what I was going through, and on top of all of it, I felt guilt and shame for feeling like shit, because everything around me looked like it was perfect from the outside. Here's me talking about something seriously deep and meaningful, and someone's just decided to mow the lawn. Like, rude. Anyway, and I think that is a really, really dangerous place to be, because you keep telling yourself that nothing's wrong and that you shouldn't feel like this and that you should be grateful and happy and humble, and there's someone that's worse off than you. And that's 100% true. We should always be practicing gratitude. We should always be looking for the things in our lives that, yeah, maybe other people don't have, but that doesn't mean that we completely ignore the fact that we're struggling in some way. And the only way to overcome your struggle is to actually be aware of the fact that you're struggling. So a lot of the questions that I always get asked through Instagram and even through these comments is, how did you get from where you were once upon a time, which was a really dark place, to where you are now, to how you see life for this big bull of like possibility and opportunity? And here is the God's honest truth and the secret. I took ownership of my own life. I stopped blaming everybody else for the things that were happening to me, and I started to take control of the thing that I knew I had control over. And that was how I reacted to what was happening around me. That takes practice, and I'm not by any means saying that it's easy, and everybody's situations are going to be different and people are going to be worse off, but the sooner I realized that nobody was coming to save me, and that this time that I spent being miserable and digging myself into a deeper hole meant that I was wasting hours of days that turned into weeks and months of self-sabotaging. So I think once I realized that A, no one's coming to save me and you're gonna have to do this yourself, and B, there is a future version of you that is waiting for you to catch up. I know when you're going through something hard and it's a struggle. It's a struggle to wake up, it's a struggle to try and find the positives and be grateful for everything you do have, but it's that suffering and being in that moment of suffering that is the biggest lesson that we can ever ask for. And when I look at where I am now and where I was 4 years ago, I'm honestly grateful for the suffering, because now I see the beauty in the suffering and the lessons that it was teaching me and what it was actually preparing me for, because now I'm living a life where it's so easy to wake up and see the beauty in absolutely everything, even the bad situations and the inconveniences that happen. Now I can see it from a distance and understand that this is happening for a reason and it's benefiting the future version of myself. I may not completely understand it right now, but one day it's all gonna make sense and I'm gonna look back at it and be like, oh, that's why that happened. I don't think that this all happened for me overnight and I woke up one day and was like, oh my God, my life is great. No, this was work. This was serious and honest work. And that's literally step one, is getting real and getting honest with yourself and looking around at the environment that you are in and seeing what could I actually change within myself right now to make my inner world different, and then that is going to project out to my outer world. For me, being in a relationship that was no longer serving me, and we were together for the wrong reasons. We were together because that's just how it had been for 7.5 years. We were really young when we got together, and it was the expectation that we just were supposed to settle for each other because that's all we knew. When in actual fact, the best thing that ever happened to me was that breakup. And then it was losing the business that I built from the ground up, that I poured 2.5 years of blood, sweat, and tears into. The second I removed those things, I started to see what I actually did want in life. I realized that the reason I went into business was for the wrong reasons. I went into it with this idea that this thing is gonna make me so much money so I can go and I can buy all these houses and these fancy cars and fancy things. So when people look at me, they're gonna respect me because I have all these things. That's a load of horse shit as well. For me, losing everything allowed me to start again with just a clear slate and a clear conscience. And I think the beauty in starting again is you get to decide where you want to go from here. And everything is an opportunity because you have nothing. And that's a really terrifying thing to experience, but it's also really liberating if you look at it from the angle of, well, I can literally go from anywhere and whatever happens, happens. And I think starting again taught me the lesson of living and leading a life that is filled with curiosity and wonder and no expectation. Because when you go into a situation with expectations, chances are when those expectations aren't met, you're gonna feel really disappointed. For me, the curiosity and the wonder means that whatever comes of a situation or a person, it is what it is. I literally have a tattoo that says it is what it is, and it means exactly that. Going through a breakup, going through a really shitty and messy, honestly, it almost felt like a divorce, but selling the business, which proved to have so many challenges in itself, it opened the doors for me to realize that I wasn't doing anything for myself. My whole life, my whole existence, my whole identity was based around somebody else or something else. I was either Mon, the business owner, the entrepreneur, or I was Mon, the girlfriend to person. And that wasn't me. No one knew me for me because I didn't know myself. That breakup taught me how to get to know myself, and the way I got to know myself was I started doing the little things that brought joy to my life. A promise that I made to myself was to try and go to the gym every single day for 28 days. And just by doing that, I felt good mentally and I felt good physically. And that promise that I made to myself led to more promises that I kept making myself and I kept keeping. And I think that is the most fundamental part of building confidence. When you can prove to yourself that you're gonna show up and actually do the damn thing, that is a superpower in itself. Because the more and the more that you keep doing that, the bigger the promises get. My promise went from going to the gym for 28 days straight to then going to Thailand with 2 strangers that I just met. And from there, it meant going to Thailand again and then experiencing the world on my own for the first time in almost 7 years. That second trip, I came back and was like, what can I do next? That trip led to me going to Nepal. And Nepal was a place that changed my life, not only because of the people that I met there, but the whole idea of if you actually just start fulfilling these promises that you made to yourself when you were a child. One of the things I always wanted to do was see Mount Everest. When you make those promises and you keep those promises that you made to yourself as a kid, as a full-grown adult, it literally unleashes that inner child in you and sets you free. From Nepal, it led to me quitting my job. I sold everything I owned. I moved back home with my parents and was about to move to Thailand for the unforeseen future. And then when COVID hit, I realized that my plans were up in the air, but I'd done the thing that I was struggling with the most, quitting my job. I was so torn about, do I do it, do I don't? That decision forced me to just go, you know what, you've got to do this. And I cleared all my debts. And that freedom that I got from clearing all my debts and then no longer having these plans to go to Thailand meant that I could focus solely on this YouTube channel. And this YouTube channel was something that I had been wanting to do for years and years and years, and I was so afraid to do it because I was so afraid of showing up as someone that wasn't who I truly was. And I think now as I'm sitting here, I've just had the realization that one of the biggest fears I had was literally sitting in front of a camera talking to people and having them judge me because they were judging a version of me that I knew I wasn't at the time. I guess the point of this video is to say that if you're someone who is feeling like they feel stuck in their own lives, if you're somebody that's going through a really dark time and period in your life, it's okay. It's okay to feel like you're lost, but the power is in your hands. The question I want to pose to you is, what are you going to do about it if you do know that something has to change? Because nothing changes if nothing changes. And when you finally accept that the only thing that's ever in your control is how you react to situations, you start to become the observer in your life. But catching yourself in those moments where you kind of take a step back and go, hang on, is this decision that I'm about to make mine, or is it being influenced by somebody else? Is that voice in my head mine, or is it generations and generations of conditioning that is now telling me I have to do my life a certain way? I have to go to uni, I have to get married young, I have to have kids young, I have to do all these things. Are those things actually what you want to be doing? Or are they the criteria that somebody else has set for you? The most beautiful thing that I get to witness with what I'm doing now, all the people that I've connected with that have reached out to me and said that they're finally going to go and do that crazy dream that they had or crazy thing that they've experienced. And hearing that people are finally deciding to get out of their own way is the reason why I show up every single week and sit here and talk in front of the camera. I see it in you. And I know that if I could get myself out of a dark depression, whatever you decide to do with your life, you can do it, regardless of what anybody else is telling you. The real magic happens when you step out of your comfort zone. For me, seeking discomfort has become this thing that I do because every single time I've stepped up to a challenge and I've proven to myself that I can do the thing that I once told myself I couldn't do, it unlocks all this potential that I didn't even know I had, and I get to meet a version of myself that I hadn't yet met. And that is what I want for you. I want you to seek the discomfort. I want you to try something new. I want you to talk to a stranger or show a random act of kindness to somebody and go and have those deep and meaningful conversations with people. I just wanted to tell you this week that you are fully capable of doing absolutely anything you put your mind to. Whether you believe that right now or not, I am going to be the cheerleader in your corner telling you, you do you, boo. That was so bad. Oh. Anyway, we can all tell that we're getting to the end of the video because now I get really awkward and don't know how to finish them. I guess I'll just leave you with this. Do something today that your future self will thank you for. That's all from me. I don't even know what I said in this video. And again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being here because it makes me happy when I get to connect with a lot of you. So I'll see you back here next week. It's a big week next week, so if you haven't, make sure you subscribe to my channel because the next few months are gonna be massive. Bye-bye now. I need to stop. I need to stop. Okay, that's all. Bye.